Have you ever caught yourself avoiding a task for no reason at all?
Oh, definitely.
Like you absolutely know you should be doing something, maybe starting that presentation or, I don't know, finally tackling that overflowing
Yeah.
inbox.
Right.
But instead you find yourself deep cleaning the junk drawer or suddenly needing to know the entire history of paper clips.
Huh. Yes. That is pretty much procrastination in a nutshell. And honestly, we've all been there.
It's such a universal thing, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
From those tiny daily put-offs to the, bigger life responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
That feeling of knowing what needs to happen but doing literally anything else, it's incredibly relatable.
Exactly. And, it's easy to beat ourselves up about it, to think it's just, I don't know, laziness or poor time management.
Yeah, that's the common view.
But I've been realizing lately that there's often a lot more going on under the surface.
Absolutely. There usually is. So in this deep dive, we're going to explore that a bit. We'll look at the different ways procrastination shows up in our lives, try to understand some of the deeper reasons behind it,
Yeah.
and maybe even find some surprising angles on how we can navigate this very, very common human tendency.
Okay, so let's get right to it. What exactly is procrastination, beyond just, putting things off?
Well, at its heart, it's about delaying tasks even when we know there might be negative consequences down the line.
Okay.
The word itself is quite telling, actually. It comes from Latin roots, pro meaning forward, and Christinus meaning belonging to tomorrow.
Ah, so literally putting off until tomorrow.
Exactly.
That makes sense. But it's not the same as intentionally delaying something because you need more information or because it's genuinely not the right time.
Right.
Like, there's a difference there.
Precisely. That's a crucial distinction. Sometimes postponing something is a smart strategic decision. You need more data or conditions aren't right.
Right.
Procrastination, on the other hand, it's marked by delays that are unnecessary and potentially harmful. We often have this nagging feeling,
That feeling.
that we should be doing something else, and that putting it off will probably cause us trouble later.
Right. It's that inner conflict. Okay, here's where it gets interesting for me. It feels like my reasons for avoiding things aren't always the same. Are there different ways procrastination actually manifests?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
not just one size fits all. The one most people immediately picture is behavioral procrastination.
Okay, the classic one.
Yeah, the classic avoidance stance, a task looms, and we distract ourselves with other activities, often things that are easier or more enjoyable.
Like scrolling endlessly on our phones.
Exactly. Or binge watching TV, or even finding very important seeming busy work to do. Think of that leaky faucet you keep meaning to fix but somehow never get around to.
Oh yeah, I know that feeling well. What other forms does it take?
Another common one is procrastination in decision-making.
Ah, okay.
This is when we delay making choices, often because we're anxious about making the wrong one. It could be something relatively minor, like agonizing for weeks over what streaming service to subscribe to.
Yeah. Guilty.
Or something a bit bigger, like putting off a medical decision. The key is the delay in the decision itself, even when not deciding has its own consequences.
It's like getting stuck in analysis paralysis.
Exactly that. Then we have academic procrastination, which is pretty self-explanatory, specifically putting off school-related tasks.
Right. Studying papers?
Yeah, think studying for exams until the 11th hour, or that research paper that somehow gets closer and closer to the deadline without a single word written.
We all remember those days of frantic cramming.
Don't we just? And beyond specific tasks, there's general procrastination.
General.
Yeah, which is a more pervasive pattern of difficulty in completing everyday tasks, organizing our time, and managing ourselves effectively across different areas of life.
So it's less about a specific project.
Right, and more about a consistent tendency to delay. It's more of an ingrained habit than just avoiding a particular chore.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then we have obsessive procrastination. This one's driven by constant doubt about whether a decision is the right one, leading to repeated delays.
Oh, wow.
You often see this in people who tend towards perfectionism, where the fear of making a wrong choice paralyzes them.
That sounds incredibly draining, constantly second-guessing yourself.
It really can be. Finally, there's the busy procrastinator.
Ah, the busy one.
This is someone who manages to stay constantly occupied with tasks, but often they're the less important ones, the ones that don't actually move their key priorities forward.
They look busy, though.
They appear productive, but they're actually avoiding what truly needs their attention.
Ah, yes, the classic, I'm so swamped I can't possibly get to that critical project excuse.
Exactly. So we see it shows up in a lot of different ways, but the big question is why? Why do we consistently do this to ourselves, even when we know it might hurt us in the long run?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? What are the root causes behind this?
Well, from a psychological perspective, one key idea is the pleasure principle.
Pleasure principle.
Essentially, we tend to delay tasks that we anticipate will be unpleasant or anxiety-inducing to avoid those negative feelings in the short term. It's like our brains are wired for immediate gratification, even if it means future suffering.
Right, seeking comfort now.
Understanding this bias is sort of the first step to overcoming it. Of course, as we know, this often backfires and leads to even more stress as deadlines get closer.
So we're choosing immediate comfort over future pain, even though we know the future pain is coming. That feels very human, doesn't it?
It does, very much so.
What other psychological factors are at play?
Beliefs and fears play a huge role. Fear of failure is a big one.
Yeah, I can see that.
The worry about not meeting our own or others' expectations or the potential negative outcomes of the task. But there's also the more surprising fear of success.
Fear of success, how does that work?
Well, could your procrastination actually be a subconscious attempt to stay within your comfort zone, even if it means limiting your potential?
Huh, interesting.
Some people might subconsciously delay achieving success due to anxieties about increased responsibility or the fear of not being able to maintain that success.
Wow, okay.
Then there's doubt about our abilities, a simple lack of confidence in being able to complete a task successfully, which makes it much easier to put it off.
Sure, if you don't think you can do it.
Exactly. And finally, perfectionism is a major contributor. When we set impossibly high standards, the anxiety around even starting can be so overwhelming that we simply avoid the task altogether.
It's like if the bar is set so high, it feels safer not to even try.
Precisely.
Fear of success. That's definitely something to think about. What about from a different angle, like a psychodynamic view, Freud and all that?
Right. Drawing from Freud, procrastination can be seen as an internal conflict. Imagine the id as your inner child wanting immediate fun.
Okay.
The superego as your inner critic telling you what you should do. And the ego as the adult trying to find a balance. Procrastination can arise when the ego struggles to mediate between those immediate desires and our long-term goals and societal expectations.
And that creates anxiety.
Exactly, leading to anxiety that we then try to avoid by procrastinating.
So it's like a little internal tug of war going on that manifests as putting things off.
That's a really helpful way to visualize it, yeah.
What about how we learn these behaviors? The behavioral side.
From a behavioral perspective, yeah, it's often seen as a learned pattern. If we get an immediate reward from doing something other than the task at hand.
Like that quick dopamine hit from social media.
Exactly. That quick dopamine hit from social media, for example, that alternative behavior gets reinforced, making us more likely to procrastinate in the future. That instant gratification can be incredibly powerful.
It really can. And it can feel like a hard cycle to break.
Absolutely. The cognitive behavioral perspective adds another layer.
Okay.
It highlights how our irrational fears and self-critical thoughts contribute to procrastination.
Ah, the inner critic again.
Right. A lack of confidence in our ability to complete tasks fuels negative self-talk, which then makes us want to avoid those tasks even more.
It's like a negative feedback loop.
Totally. You doubt yourself, you procrastinate, and then you feel even worse about yourself, which leads to more procrastination.
That makes perfect sense. What about our actual feelings about the task itself? Does that play a role?
Emotional associations are huge. If we have negative thoughts or feelings linked to a specific task, maybe fear of failure, past guilt associated with a similar project, general anxiety, or even just plain boredom.
Yeah, boredom is a big one for me sometimes.
Right. We're naturally going to be more inclined to avoid it. It's our brain trying to protect us from discomfort.
Okay.
Then there's lack of clarity. If we're not sure about the details of a task, the when, what, and how, it can feel overwhelming, and we might put it off simply because we don't know where to begin.
Yeah, that where do I even start feeling?
Exactly. And let's not forget, simple task aversion. Sometimes we just really, truly dislike a particular task.
Fair enough.
Finally, difficulties with attention and self-control can make it hard to focus on those longer-term rewards when immediate distractions are so readily available. This is where the link to things like ADHD often comes into play.
Wow, that's a really comprehensive look at the potential reasons. It definitely reframes procrastination as something much more complex than just simple laziness.
It absolutely is.
So, how do things like stress, anxiety, and even our motivation levels play into all of this, according to research?
Yeah, research has shown some interesting connections. Studies have found a significant link between stress, anxiety, and academic procrastination. High stress, high anxiety often equals more putting things off.
Okay, that seems intuitive.
Right. But interestingly, some research suggests that even if someone is academically motivated, high levels of stress and anxiety can still lead to procrastination.
Really, if they want to do it.
It seems like even strong motivation isn't always enough to overcome those powerful negative emotions. However, other research does indicate that generally, the less motivated someone is academically, the more likely they are to procrastinate.
So, motivation still matters, but it's not the whole picture.
Exactly. It's a bit of a complex picture, but it highlights that procrastination isn't just about wanting to do something. Our emotional state plays a crucial role. Stress, in particular, can intensify our immediate needs and make it harder to focus on and pursue those longer-term goals.
Creating a cycle.
Exactly, creating a cycle of procrastination and increased stress.
It sounds like a real tangle of our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked about why we do it. Are there any common patterns of behavior that tend to show up in people who procrastinate, like telltale signs?
Absolutely. There are several common signs. Procrastinators often find themselves constantly checking social media and email, even when they know they have important work to do. Sound familiar?
Maybe a little.
They also tend to be frequently late for appointments, sometimes even significant ones. It's almost like they're subconsciously avoiding commitment, even to time itself. Another common one is difficulty actually starting tasks. That initial push can feel like climbing a mountain.
Oh, the inertia is real.
Totally. You might also hear procrastinators complaining a lot about being busy and overwhelmed, almost as a way to explain why they haven't gotten to their real priorities.
Right, using busyness as a shield.
It's like they want to appear productive to avoid facing the fact they're avoiding the important stuff.
I recognize some of these tendencies in myself, I have to admit.
Many of us do. It's very human. Procrastinators also often lack a clear system or plan for managing their time and tasks, which can contribute to the feeling of being overwhelmed and make it easier to put things off.
Right, no roadmap.
They might also struggle to finish tasks once they've started, getting easily sidetracked or losing momentum. Not prioritizing effectively is another common trait.
Focusing on the easy stuff instead of the important stuff.
Exactly, leading them to focus on less important, more immediately gratifying activities. You might also notice they have long, daunting to-do lists that contribute to that feeling of overwhelm.
Yeah, the endless list.
And they often don't plan their day in advance, making it easier to get swept up in less important things. And sometimes they even become forgetful about the tasks they've put off.
Like a subconscious avoidance.
Perhaps, yeah, as a subconscious way to avoid confronting them.
It paints a pretty vivid picture. It's almost like a self-perpetuating cycle.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that there might be some biological and environmental factors at play, too.
Yes, there's growing evidence that our brain activity and even our genetics can influence our individual tendencies towards avoidance and self-regulation.
Really? Genetics.
Potentially, yes. Some people might be more predisposed to procrastination due to how their brains are wired. Additionally, our upbringing, our social relationships, and the cultural context we live in can all shape how we approach tasks and our likelihood of procrastinating.
So family, culture.
Right. For example, certain family dynamics or cultural pressures around achievement could potentially contribute to these patterns. So it's not just about individual willpower. There are deeper influences at work.
That's an important reminder. Now, we've mostly focused on the downsides, which are pretty clear: stress, anxiety, guilt.
Yeah, all the unpleasant stuff.
But I recall reading something about a potential upside to procrastination. That definitely caught my attention. Is that really a thing?
It's true. Well, potentially. While the negative consequences are well documented, increased stress, anxiety, guilt, and all those missed opportunities, some research has explored potential benefits.
Okay, I'm listening.
There's the idea of the active procrastinator.
The active procrastinator.
Yeah, someone who deliberately delays but still manages to focus and complete tasks effectively, often thriving under pressure. It's like they use that time to think things over, and the impending deadline actually sharpens their focus.
So they delay on purpose, but productively.
Kind of, yeah. And perhaps even more surprisingly, one study found that individuals who procrastinated a bit before brainstorming actually generated more creative ideas. like 28% more creative.
Wow.
The theory is that that initial delay allows for more divergent thinking and the incubation of ideas. Your mind wanders and connects things differently.
Interesting.
The key here seems to be strategic procrastination, a deliberate delay for a specific purpose rather than just aimless avoidance.
That's fascinating.
Right.
So a little bit of putting things off could actually spark creativity. It
Yeah.
sounds like it's all about intention and how we use that delayed time.
Exactly. It's not just scrolling social media for 2 hours.
Okay, so for those of us who tend to fall into the less productive, more stressful side of procrastination, what are some actual strategies we can use to tackle it?
Right. There are many effective approaches, and a lot of it comes down to breaking down that feeling of being overwhelmed and building momentum.
Makes sense.
One of the most recommended is to break down large tasks into much smaller, more manageable steps.
Bite-sized pieces.
Exactly. This makes the overall project feel less daunting and easier to start. And once you've broken it down, set clear deadlines for each of those smaller steps.
Mini deadlines.
Yes, it's much easier to commit to a smaller chunk of work.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking, I have to write this entire report, you're just focusing on, I need to outline the first section.
Precisely. And when you complete those smaller steps, make sure to reward yourself.
The reward system.
Acknowledging your progress, even in small ways, can provide positive reinforcement and keep you motivated. Another really powerful strategy is to simply just start.
Get the ball rolling.
Often, the biggest hurdle is overcoming that initial inertia, even if it's just for a few minutes. The 5-minute rule is a great tool for this.
The 5-minute rule.
Yeah, commit to working on the task for just 5 minutes. You'll often find that once you get going, it's easier to keep going. The hardest part is often just starting.
That's a fantastic tip. It lowers the pressure of having to do the whole thing right away.
Hmm.
I've also heard of the 2-minute rule. How does that fit in?
The 2-minute rule. That suggests that if a task takes less than 2 minutes to complete, you should do it immediately instead of putting it off.
Oh, right.
It's surprising how many small, quick tasks we tend to accumulate, and tackling them right away can prevent them from becoming a bigger source of stress later on.
Like responding to a quick email or putting something away.
Yeah.
Those little things really can pile up.
Exactly. What about planning and getting organized?
Yeah, that seems key.
Creating a plan or a to-do list is crucial. Writing down your tasks and prioritizing them helps bring clarity and reduces that feeling of being overwhelmed by a vague sense of what needs to be done.
Gets it out of your head.
You can also try time blocking, scheduling specific times in your day for working on particular tasks, just like you would any other important appointment.
Treat it like a meeting.
Pretty much. And of course, identifying and minimizing distractions is key. Recognize what typically pulls your attention away from your work. The phone, social media notifications, a noisy environment, and actively try to reduce those interruptions during focused work time.
Easier said than done sometimes.
It's true. But awareness is the first step. The Pomodoro technique, where you work in focused 25-minute intervals with short breaks in between, can also be really effective for managing your attention and breaking down work into manageable chunks.
I've heard a lot of people find the Pomodoro technique helpful. It creates these little bursts of focused effort.
Yeah, it breaks up the monotony and gives you regular little rests.
What about when the procrastination feels really tied to negative feelings or that inner critic we talked about?
That's where practicing self-compassion becomes so important.
Being kind to yourself.
Exactly. Try to avoid beating yourself up for procrastinating, as it's often linked to underlying anxieties and fears. Focus on using positive self-talk and being kind to yourself instead. It doesn't help to just feel guilty.
Right.
It can also be really beneficial to identify your peak productivity times. Are you a morning person? A night owl? Schedule your most important or difficult tasks for those times of day when you naturally feel more focused and energetic.
Work with your energy, not against it.
Precisely. Learning to say no to new commitments when you're already feeling overwhelmed can also prevent future procrastination. Don't overcommit.
Boundary setting.
Yes. And don't underestimate the simple act of planning your day the night before. It can reduce that feeling of morning overwhelm and give you a clear starting point when you wake up.
Those are all really actionable steps. What if the procrastination feels like it's more than just a habit, like really persistent and damaging? When should someone consider looking for more professional support?
That's a really important question. If procrastination is consistently and significantly impacting your daily life, your relationships, your work, or your overall well-being, it might be worth considering whether there are underlying mental health factors.
Like depression or anxiety?
Exactly, like depression, anxiety, or maybe ADHD, that could be contributing. In those cases, seeking professional help from a therapist or counselor can be incredibly valuable in identifying and addressing the root causes.
Okay.
Sometimes, even things like nutritional deficiencies B12, vitamin D can affect energy levels and motivation, so that's something to consider with a healthcare professional too.
Right. Check the physical stuff too.
And also, finding an accountability partner, someone who shares similar goals or is also working on managing procrastination, can provide external motivation and support to stay on track.
Having someone check in on you.
Yeah, it can make a big difference for some people.
It sounds like tackling procrastination can be a really personal journey, and sometimes we need extra support along the way.
Absolutely. It's also about cultivating a greater appreciation for the process of working on tasks rather than solely focusing on the end result. Finding some inherent interest or value in what you're doing can make a big difference.
Enjoying the journey, not just the destination.
Something like that. Some people find little mental tricks helpful, like the stare technique.
The stare technique.
Yeah, where you spend a minute or two just focusing intently on the task, just looking at it, to build mental intention before you start.
Interesting, like psyching yourself up.
Kind of. And it's crucial to challenge those negative inner conversations that fuel procrastination. Replace them with more positive and encouraging self-talk. Be really honest with yourself about busy procrastination. Are you actually working on what matters most?
Yeah, checking if the activity is actually productive.
Right. And finally, remember to forgive yourself for past instances of procrastination and view each day as a fresh start. Don't let past setbacks derail your future efforts.
That's huge. Letting go of the guilt.
It really is. Guilt isn't a great motivator long term.
That's a really comprehensive toolkit of strategies. But I think the first step, as you mentioned earlier, is really understanding when and why we're procrastinating in the first place. That's self-awareness.
Exactly. Developing self-awareness around your procrastination triggers the thoughts, feelings, and situations that tend to lead you to put things off is absolutely crucial. Once you understand your patterns, you can start to implement more targeted strategies that actually address your reasons for delaying.
So it's not about becoming a productivity guru overnight or eliminating it completely necessarily,
Probably not, no.
but more about understanding ourselves better and finding sustainable ways to manage procrastination effectively.
Precisely. It's about finding what works best for you. There's no magic bullet, but with awareness and experimentation, you can definitely make progress and feel more in control.
Okay, so to bring it all together, we've really taken a deep dive into procrastination today.
You certainly have.
It's clearly a complex human experience with a variety of forms and underlying causes, ranging from, psychological factors to potential biological and environmental influences.
Mhm.
And while it often has negative consequences, there might even be that tiny creative upside to being strategically late to the party sometimes.
That's a great way to summarize it. And as we've explored, there are many different tools and techniques we can use, from breaking down tasks and managing distractions to addressing our inner critic and seeking support when needed.
So for you listening, maybe the question isn't how to never procrastinate, because maybe that's unrealistic,
Maybe so.
but to really understand why you're avoiding certain tasks. What are those feelings trying to tell you about your relationship with the task itself, or perhaps your own underlying anxieties?
That's a powerful question to sit with.
It's definitely something worth exploring in your own life.
Absolutely. We encourage you to take some time to reflect on your own procrastination habits and maybe try out a few of the strategies we've discussed. See what sticks. It's a journey of learning and finding what helps you move forward in a way that feels more aligned with your goals and well-being.